right, welcome back. There is a Fox News alert for you now. President Trump lashing out at the Mueller probe again today amid new reaction to the revelation that White House counsel Don McGahn has met extensively with the special counsel's team for questioning. The president tweeting, quote, disgraced and discredited Bob Mueller and his whole group of angry Democrat thugs spent over 30 hours with the White House counsel, only with my approval for purposes of transparency. Anybody needing that much time when they know there is no Russian collusion is just someone looking for trouble. The president yesterday also slamming a New York Times report about McGahn's reasoning for meeting with Mueller, tweeting, quote, the failing New York Times wrote a story that made it seem like the White House counsel had turned on the president, when in fact, it is just the opposite, and the two fake reporters knew this. This is why the fake news media has become the enemy of the people. So bad for America. But the New York Times tweeting right back, the New York Times stands behind the reporting of our Pulitzer Prize-winning reporters. Read the article that President Trump has been tweeting about this morning. In the meantime, reports now are that the president's legal team not quite sure exactly what McGahn told Mueller's team. But the president's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, says former Trump lawyer John Dowd informed him that McGahn was an excellent witness for the president. Watch.
I think that through John Dowd, we have a pretty good sense of it. And John Dowd yesterday said, I'll use his words rather than mine, that McGahn was a strong witness for the president. So I don't need to know much more about that.
Yeah. Giuliani also accusing the Mueller team of leaking information about the interview, saying they're getting desperate because they don't have anything. Charles, brevity is the soul of wit. Has John McGahn lost his wits? Because spending 30 hours with special counsel, it doesn't sound like the best idea.
It doesn't, but I think what President Trump said was interesting, and it's interesting also because the Journal put out a piece, and you know, the editorial board over there, they're not President Trump's best friends, and even on this score, though, they say, come on. I mean, you have to really waive executive privilege to let this go through. Right. That's an amazing sign. I mean, that's something you just simply do not give up or give away if you feel like you're guilty. But having said that, I think I speak for the entire American public. Please make it stop. Please get it over with today, please. Yeah. I mean, 30 hours there. It's just crazy. What's going on? When did we find the finish line on this thing?
But 30 hours with the special counsel, as McGahn did, may be a way to prevent the president from having to sit down for an interview.
You would think.
You're putting all these people on the White House counsel up to kind of stop the movement and the momentum to get to the president.
You think that'll happen then?
It might not, but that's their whole goal, is to stop, to get the special counsel enough information, as you've seen them say. We've given them enough information. We've given them hundreds of thousands of documents. Our people are talking to you. There's no reason why you need to sit down with the president. So that's probably why he was given the unlimited time frame. But it just feels like the president can't win. He opens up his White House counsel to an interview for the sake of transparency, as they say.
You mean and they can't win in the media.
Right. And then they automatically assume that he's turning on the president or being a bad witness.
But that's the thing, we don't know.
We don't know.
No one knows
what the outcome is.
What anybody said for those 30 hours. So I think it's kind of probably a little naive to think that just because you know a person, after hour 3, you probably have lost what you can count on at that point. Yeah. Because that's a lot of talking. But just to further what you said, it's such an interesting point. So the whole point of wanting to sit down with the president is because he can get at things that you normally couldn't get at. But after 30 hours with one witness and you're talking with other people, you might be closer to that zone where the president isn't the only person who can answer certain questions. Exactly. That they've been asked and answered by other people, which then takes the onus off the president politically to have to sit down with Mueller because they can get this information elsewhere.
All right, but what happens? So let's say the best case scenario for the president, that even with this gigantic fishing expedition with Don McGahn alone, you know, what if in the end Mueller really doesn't have anything? What does that do? I mean, he doesn't care. He's at the end of his career. But what does it do for special counsels moving forward?
I don't know. I mean, that's a great question. It does undermine the idea maybe that you need one. Although, you know, having him go through all of this and verify that nothing happened, then it did serve its purpose because we did want to know what was the interference and where did it come from. I mean, I like to listen to Andy McCarthy, who we've had on the couch about these things, because he's a former prosecutor and you can never kind of predict what he's going to say. He doesn't seem to be terribly political one way or the other. And he talked about the idea that at this point, if you look at what has been the outcome come in the reaction, whether it's Mueller laying off cases to other areas or what he's doing following Paul Manafort, which to me makes a lot of sense because Paul Manafort is someone who does have connections to Putin, Russians that are backed by the Kremlin. Yeah. But his response to all of this doesn't seem to be that the president has done anything if you look at the way he's acted on that. But he says the president should really stop tweeting because all he's doing is trash talking and antagonizing someone who's sitting there working on a case. And he said himself he'd be mad if it were him.
So 2 things for transparency. I mean, if the president wants this to end and for it to be over when it ends, because it could just linger when it ends. Right. But if it's really over, then he adds to the legitimacy of whatever the findings are by saying, look, I've allowed people to go out and talk. But remember what Senator Lindsey Graham said about a week or so ago. You have to let this play out with a whole lot of patience. I don't know if executive privilege is what you want, because you've gotten Governor Christie today saying, oh, he gave away too much, the president. But at least then when it ends, it's over.
Well, this sort of dovetails with what Melissa was saying in a sense that if you discredit it every day and then they come out in your favor, have you actually discredited, and
does it linger after it ends?
But the bottom line is that it's at this point, there's still talk occasionally of getting Sessions to act, and I feel like we've run at least half of a marathon, and to run back to the finish line would be kind of ridiculous. Let's just get it over with and done. But
we're past the snack stand. We're in mile 3.
It feels like we're perpetuating our heartbreak hill. That's what it feels like.
Boston Marathon reference, well done. So let's talk a little bit about where we are right now. And Charles brings up a really good point, because if in fact the president is exonerated, it sort of undermines the tweet. So what can happen conclusively that either makes complete sense of all the leaks and everything we've heard so far, or actually exonerates the president? I mean, I guess the point is, you say that at some point the president is hoping this ends when it ends, and it feels like this for either side could go on for much longer. I
just think it's been so politically charged on both sides, no matter what the outcome is. If Special Counsel Robert Mueller clears the president and there is no collusion found, then the left is going to go crazy, and they'll start doing what the right has been doing and saying that the investigation was never legitimate, that they didn't question all of the right people, et cetera, and the right will then try to move on. But I doubt that Democrats will let it go.
The
better president is let go.
If we were to find out that end before the midterm elections, Democrat supporters would be apoplectic. They want you to concentrate on the economy. I mean, it doesn't really help the Democrats either way.
Yeah, and the majority of people are sick of, as Charles said, sick of the investigation. They want it to end, and they quite frankly don't really care about it.
Well, no one's sick of money.